welcome back to the 5th episode of the Bullpen. Coming off Thanksgiving week here, it was kind of a little bit of a crazy week for us last week with just traveling and stuff. But first off, how was Thanksgiving for you guys? I know personally it was a good week for me. Nice to see family and stuff. So everything go good with you guys?
Yeah, it was good for me, Gav. My main question is, did you get your ham that you were so worried about?
Actually, so I was at my girlfriend's family's house, and they are big turkey people. So we had no ham at Thanksgiving, but
Well, I
I
hope
did
you
see on
survived
Twitter.
that. That was probably
That's
very
weird. I
traumatic
wonder
for
why.
you.
It was. I was really looking for some ham, but no, I saw on Twitter and Instagram we did like those polls, and turkey was the majority winner on both. So that was a bit upsetting for me, but I was able to see who was voting for ham, so I'm gonna keep that closed. But I appreciate all those people very much.
Well, hey, when it's Christmas time and we do the Christmas poll, I think the results might be a little flip because
Yeah.
I think Christmas is a ham holiday, not Thanksgiving. But I'm glad you had a good Thanksgiving, Gav.
It was good, but then you gotta watch the Bears struggle on Thursday, and then on Friday I go to the Wisconsin game and they lose to Minnesota, and it's an absolute blowout, and it's freezing out, and it's just back-to-back days of bad football. So
I don't mean to take any shots, but has Wisconsin won a single game that you've been to this year?
no, they're 0-3. Yep, 0-3 this year.
I think
so,
that's a sign.
yeah. That was going into the game. That was my biggest thing. I was like, I don't know, I'm 0-2 this year, and then 0-3. So, but no, it was a good Thanksgiving. It's nice to get back here and kind of settled and figure some things out for the next few weeks here before Christmas and stuff. But last week we talked through some commitments that came through, or actually we talked through the future games commitments, and one guy that we missed from Team Illinois that we forgot to mention, so apologies for that, is Gavin Michaels, committed to Cincinnati. He is from Normal Community here in the Central Illinois area, so he committed to Cincinnati. So apologies for missing him last week. Drew, have you got anything there?
Yeah, I kind of just ditto what you're saying. Apologize to Gavin because we go through all the future game commitments, and he was certainly a guy that I thought made waves at the event. He was also one of the last guys we invited. Got a look at him later in the summer, and he does a lot of really, really good things on the baseball field to impact the game. Not just with the bat that I think is going to continue to play as he gets stronger. I love the way it kind of flows through the zone and the easy jump he gets off the barrel, but he can play all over the infield, all over the diamond. I like him at shortstop. I think he could also play center field, and he really stood out at the future games the way he ran the bases, and I think that's kind of been his calling card. Everything we've heard about him is the impact he can make on the bases. I know he walked, made it all the way to second base, didn't hesitate around the bag, but to me it's just the constant pressure he's putting on the defense. He's always looking to take the extra base. He's always getting a quality secondary lead, reading the ball in the dirt. Trying to go first and third on a simple single, just things like that. So I love the motor he plays with. Great kid in the dugout, and we just rolled out a hot list with like top base runners or top runners in each state. And I know one guy we mentioned was Logan Fernandez over there at Mount Carmel in 2026, but we also felt the need. We had to throw in Gavin Michaels. The 60 time is good. It's not like he's a 6'2" runner. Like his speed is very good in the 60, but it plays up on the field. And that to me is what it's all about. Whether you run a 7.2, a 7.3, a 6.6, like make sure that speed is, playing to that level or playing up on the field. Don't be that 6.6 runner that gets bad jumps on the pitcher or doesn't get out of the box and is running 4.5s down the line and it doesn't match the 60. And that's what I love so much about Gavin. So tons of upside in him just as a prospect, and can't wait to see what the future holds. So good call out there, Gav. He's definitely a guy that deserves his flowers.
Yeah, and this week's episode, I kind of forgot to mention this in the intro, is going to be a little bit different than the ones that we've had in the past so far. So today we're going to have Skyler Me, the head baseball coach at Troy University, on, and then we're also going to have Coach Brisco, who is the head baseball coach at Downers Grove North, on. And he also coaches football. I don't know what exactly his role with the football team is. I don't know if you want to correct me there or give some insight. But so we're gonna have multiple interviews, and it's gonna be less kind of prospect talk today like we have in the past. But really good interviews we have scheduled here, and I'm super excited to get into it with them and talk about their teams, talk about their careers, things like that. So transitioning though quickly.
Well, Gavin, before
sorry,
you
go ahead.
transition, I think we're continuing to try to go down the path here with this podcast with our guests that we're bringing on to continue the variety. We've brought on Tim Funkhauser, a head baseball coach. We brought on Owen Murphy. We brought on Ryan Copeland. We're going to bring back on a head baseball coach at a, college program in Skyler Me. And then we're going to also bring on Kyle Brisco, who's a high school coach. So to me, that's when we were talking about this whole revamping and what we wanted to do. Like, I want to continue to bring variety to who we're bringing on here, but at the same time, like, still, there are hopefully all people that, can help impact what's going on here in Illinois. So that's just, I like it. I think we're going to continue to, getting podcast guests is, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's a challenge that I've never had to experience before. So, it's something that we're striving for, and we'll just continue to push the envelope and see who all we can get.
Yeah, and I think the thing with it too that I was just thinking about kind of over the weekend is like how, like with this episode specifically, like it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past where we have more interviews, and I think that's good. Like as a listener, you get to come in and you're not always expecting the same thing, but you're also kind of expecting something that's relatively similar. So I don't know. I think it'll be a good episode, and I'm excited to hear what both of those coaches have to say because I know they have some awesome insights for us. But Tyler, as usual, baseball news, not a ton over the weekend, but what do you got for us?
Thanks, Gav. First thing is, it's kind of been slow with the hot stove. If you've been following MLB, there's not been a ton of moves. Expect that to maybe change next week when the winter meetings start in Dallas. That's just usually when all the agents, all the GMs, all the owners are all kind of in one place, and deals tend to happen during that. But a big signing last week was Blake Snell to the Dodgers. This was a big deal because it's just the rich getting richer in Major League Baseball, and there's mixed opinions on both sides of the aisle whether or not this is good for the sport. But regardless, we're not a MLB podcast, so we probably won't get too in the weeds there. But just the details on it was a 5-year, $182 million deal. Snell was awesome last year. He was Cy Young, I think, the year before that or 2 years ago. So that's all for me on the baseball news, Gav.
Yeah,
I have one that just
ahead.
popped up this morning, Gavin, and I'd be
All
curious if you guys know anything on this guy, but Matthew Boyd just signed a 2-year deal with the Cubs.
Yeah, he started a playoff game for the Guardians this past postseason.
Fill me in here. We paid him 2 years. Starter, left-handed. Is the ERA look good from last year? I was just briefly going through some stats, but I know you're talking big baseball news. I'm focused here on Chicago baseball. What are we going to be doing here to improve these two clubs? So I was just curious if any of you guys had seen anything on Matthew Boyd or knew anything more on him than me, but I guess we'll find out.
No, he's definitely starting depth for you guys. He pitched for the Tigers.
Yeah, all right. Well, getting over here to our rankings now. We're not going to go too deep in the weeds with it. So 2 weeks ago, we updated our 2025 rankings. This week, we took the break from Thanksgiving, and then now this week we're going to the 2026 rankings update. And we're probably going to talk more about this, I would say, next week, after we kind of look through some of these prospects and kind of dig into our rankings and our order because it's not entirely solidified yet. We still have some guys to discuss through, but I don't know if anybody off the top has anyone they want to talk about. I know Ethan Bass, we saw him at the All-American game. Like, is there anybody that you guys want to quickly chat through, or maybe even just our process for this next update?
I don't have a player in particular to talk about. I was kicking myself listening to last week's episode when we did kind of get a little into the weeds on rankings and not hopping in here because I think Drew does a great job at our showcases giving this message to all the players that are in attendance. Like, don't let your ranking or if you're not ranked affect how you view yourself as a player. from personal experience, I played high school ball in Ohio, and I was not ranked in the PBR system. And you can bet I used that as a chip on my shoulder throughout high school. And uh, in a later episode, we'll probably touch on all of our baseball backgrounds, and I'm not going to do all of that right here. But I ended up going on to have a 5-year playing career in college. Like, your ranking isn't everything, and it should never be everything to you. So don't let it, affect how you view yourself, and just continue to, work hard and use it as a chip. Hey, maybe you're ranked number 2 and you think you should be number 1. Use this as a chip. Like, we want everybody to be the best that they can absolutely be in the state of Illinois.
Another thing with that, so when I was in high school, I was ranked by PBR and another publication, and the other publication had me ranked a lot better. So I had some, like, not beef with PBR, but I was like, these guys, like, they're wrong. Like, they don't, all it came down to was they just didn't see me as much. And a lot of that comes down to just, like, we only get to see, these kids a certain amount of times, or maybe we don't see a kid, so, like, at all, and he really popped. So a lot of it just comes down to, like, the circumstances on how often we, like, have seen a kid, how recently we've seen them, how well we saw them. There's just a lot of different things that go into it, but that was a big one that stood out to me, because it's like, being on the other side of it now, like, I can totally see, like, why I was ranked here and why they had me ranked here. It's because they saw me way better, more, and they saw me, like, once. And it's like, we can't confidently put someone way up here when we've only seen it one time, if that makes sense.
I think those are great calls. And especially if that one time, Peter, is when you're playing at Downers Grove South and it's March 22nd and it's 37 degrees.
Pretty close. We were playing Naperville North, actually, Drew.
Okay.
You can go look at the write-up. It was like,
it's a tough game right there.
Cold, rainy. Yeah, it was tough. We killed them. We killed them, though.
There are so many different factors that go into how we view players, and the looks we get at guys is probably the number one. And I think we've talked in the past just how important it is to see a guy in a smaller showcase setting. You get those verified statistics, but then we also see them at a high school game or at a summer game and see them actually playing the game. But there are so many times where, as an evaluator, you have to know what you are watching when you go to the park. If I go to the park and it's 40 degrees and it's the second week of the season, you can't have the same expectations of seeing a guy in the middle of June. If it's a pitcher, if it's a hitter, if it's an infielder, some of these high school fields with their dirt infields, they're soft, grass that hasn't firmed up yet and balls are spinning every which way. You can watch it in pregame, some of the bounces these balls are taking, even outfielders out there. So, and then, yeah, just the volume of looks, because let's face it, at that age, guys are going to be inconsistent. The better players are the more consistent players with, that they're the same guy every time you see them. Those tend to be better players that don't have the swings and the up and downs that other guys may do. But Tyler, to your point, I could not, agree more. It's simply a number. It's simply an indicator of, and we're one publication. We are one organization, and there are so many schools out there, and everybody, likes different things. I mean, everybody likes left-handers that throw 100, but everybody does have their little sweet tooths, and you may kind of stand out to somebody and maybe don't stand out to somebody else. So just understand, I think, too, like, with that being said, like, who are you as a baseball player? I think knowing who you are as a player is huge. We see it in BP, and it's probably become more prevalent than ever. Like, these guys that are built, and I'll just say maybe undersized for their age, have not fully matured, and they're hitting like Aaron Judge. They're hitting like a guy that is, really physical and 6'3" and 220 pounds, who does have a ton of pop. And it's like, no, you have to understand, you are that undersized guy. So what is it gonna, what do you have to do to be a successful hitter if you don't have the same power? Well, can you have a better approach? Can you be more on a line? Can you make better swing decisions? Can you swing with less effort? There's so many different things that, go with it, because players come in all shapes and sizes. What makes Tyler good, is different than what made Peter good as a pitcher and Gavin good as a pitcher and, myself as a position guy. So understanding who that is, like if you don't have a premium arm across the infield, it doesn't mean you can't play infield, but you better have a quicker release maybe than somebody that has a big arm. You better be really accurate. You better be able to charge the baseball, know the runner, have IQ. There's so many things that go with it, but understand who you are as a player and don't try to be somebody you're not. Like that to me is a turnoff. When I see these, maybe it's a little lefty in a BP setting and every swing he's finishing on his backside and every ball's lifted, into shallow center field. And yeah, they may be on the barrel, but it's an F8. Versus those little, I'm going to throw a comp out here like Wyatt Waro. Like, he is not a physical guy, but he's got all kinds of whip and bat speed, and the ball comes off his bat really good. But he doesn't approach his hitting as a power guy. He is a spray it all over the yard. I'm not going to swing and miss. I'm going to be the biggest pest out there, and I'm going to be a hard out. And guess what? Like, he'll occasionally, show off some sneaky pull side juice, but it's not his intention. You guys get me talking about rankings, get me talking about players. I can go on and on and on.
Well, Drew,
yeah.
That reminded me of Owen Murphy, how we just had him on. He was pitching like he was throwing 82. Like he needed all of his pitches, like he needed to hit a spot no matter what. Like it didn't matter that he was throwing 96. He knew who he was as a pitcher, and that was a competitor, someone that was going to mix it up, change speeds. Didn't matter who was against. He just happened to throw 96, and now he's in, single A, double A?
What I love about that is anybody, you don't have to have Owen Murphy's talent to have Owen Murphy's makeup and mindset. If you are a guy that throws 82, 84, be the best freaking 82, 84 pitcher you can be. Learn a secondary pitch that you can throw in any count. Learn how to command the fastball to both sides of the plate. Work in your short boxes. Have, crazy intent in every workout you do, in every pregame that you have. Like, be as consistent as possible. But I agree. That's what is so awesome to hear Owen Murphy talk like that, because he does have the talent and he has the makeup. And we said it on the pot, like, that's the total package.
Yeah. Guys that...
go ahead.
No, sorry to cut you off. Guys that can get outs and pitch at, 82, that's like a gold mine. That's, scary in a way. It's like you just get them in the weight room or get them with a little bit of velo, and then you don't know what you got. They're going to take off. So guys that can compete and get outs while maybe not having, the sexiest or flashiest stuff, those are guys you want to keep an eye on for sure.
And with this, sorry, Drew, go ahead.
No, get in there, Gav.
Because of the time constraint, we had to interview Skyler Me before we actually filmed this part. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I implore you to listen to what he talked about and some stories that he talked about in the interview with him, because he talked about a guy that played Division III baseball, came to Troy, and found success. He talked about really, as a pitching guy, liking the guy that's 85, 87 and competes and wins and does it in game, rather than maybe the guy that's 92 to 94 but can't find the strike zone. So I guess with that, if you are ranked 110th, don't be the guy that only that's the best you get. Keep getting better, and once you get to college, whether it's JUCO, Division III, Division II, Division I, who cares what your ranking is now? Try and be the best you can be when you are 22, 23, 25, if you get to keep playing that long.
And I'll say this too, 100% we strive for perfection here, but we're human and we get things wrong sometimes. It's not something we, it just happens, right? We get things wrong. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast, but yeah, I think that's a good message, Gav.
Gavin, Peter, Tyler, once again, really excited for our upcoming guest here. We welcome on Coach Brisco. He is the head baseball coach, also an assistant football coach over there at Downers Grove North, a program that has seen all kinds of talent come through in the last couple years. Hopefully there's no slowing down, at least I know me and Peter, they're like home games when we get to go to Downers Grove North and watch you guys play, so it's always a benefit. Welcome on, Coach. Thanks for taking some time. I know you're in the middle of your school day right now.
No, like I said, thank you guys for having me on. And like you guys said, I get to see Peter and Drew. You guys, I see you probably at least a handful of times throughout the year. Tyler and Gavin, I know you guys work in different regions. But yeah, I'm excited to be on and talk some football and baseball with you guys today.
Awesome, Coach. Well, I'm going to open up the floor to just our staff here. Gavin, Peter, Tyler, they're on every episode. They're a huge part of what we do here in Illinois, and just seeing players and covering the state as best as we can. And guys, if there's one question you want to get going to right off the rip, Peter, I don't know if there's something that you have.
I actually really liked maybe your opener about like what's going on in Downers Grove. I think that's a good place to start with just like.
And can I actually add some color to that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
so
please.
we were doing some research. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm sitting here, doing extensive research all over the Thanksgiving holiday, but one thing I did see was your first couple of years, like, tough. I will just say that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say
You're being
records
kind,
or
Drew, by
anything.
saying tough, but
Hey, you're not recruiting who's on your team here. So I totally get that. You're at a public high school. It's who's ever in your district. There's probably ebbs and flows, like there is at every community program. But what the heck has changed? Because after COVID, I want to say 22, 23, 24, you've had some 30-win seasons, and I'm actually going to get it right here. So in 22, you went 16-13. In 2023, you went 32-5, and then we're talking 2024, you went 30-8. So, you quickly turned yourself into a program that is drawing a lot of attention.
yeah. I mean, obviously, like you said, my first few years here, definitely getting our feet wet, definitely took our lumps. Just trying to, kind of reestablish a program that had been, high quality program, and just obviously getting the players. I mean, to stay in Downers. I mean, like we occasionally get the Catholic schools take a player here, but really just kind of establishing and getting quality players in from Downers Grove. One thing about Downers Grove is baseball has always been big in younger levels. Between long shots, hounds, youth baseball and stuff like that. I mean, we have a ton of travel programs in our area, and kind of just getting those kids and realizing what they can do in terms of high school and beyond. And I think guys on these past few teams, like the Wall Cows, like the Janikis, like Warwicks, we've had, Ian Check, Tony Canopius. I mean, we've had, even going back to David Marshall, Cam Demos, who are at St. Bonaventure right now, we've had some guys roll through here, and we've been able to kind of stack those players together, at least for a year or two. And like you said, I mean, and it had some competitive years for us the past few years.
So with you saying that, and Gavin, it looks like you might have a question queued up. And go ahead if it's going off of what he said there.
Yeah, so with that, Coach, obviously, like we had mentioned, you've had in 23 and 24 two really impressive seasons. What have you guys done, I guess, and what have you done to kind of create a culture within your program to have that success and to try and continue that success?
I mean, so obviously, like, success is great, but it's not the end all be all. You know what I mean? Like, obviously our goal is to always win a state championship. But just kind of like creating those relationships with guys. We've been really pushing that. I mean, we've also really been trying to also like the mental aspect. We have brought on a mental coach that actually still works with Walkow still to this day. I mean, just trying to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack. Like, what's everyone else doing that, put us ahead, and that's what we're trying to do. I mean, really like that mental side of it. It's something we've been pushing the past, probably 2 or 3 years, and it's obviously shown dividends looking at the big picture with the success we've had. That's kind of one thing that we've tried to really do. I mean, because let's be honest, everyone's got a lifting program. Everyone's got their off-season workouts. It's kind of like, what can we do to separate, the baseball aspect, but also the mental aspect, because, heck, you guys all know, I mean, baseball is just so much mental. You know what I mean? I mean, you guys see it now just with all your numbers and stuff like that. I mean, there's guys out there that can run, that can throw. It's about how do you put it down between the lines when you're on the lineup card. I mean, I'm sure you guys are seeing the data. You guys see it more than me. I mean, you're seeing numbers probably increase, faster 60 times. Velo, you're like, man, we got more 90-mile-an-hour arms than we've ever had. But now it's about, hey, do you have it between the ears to get it locked in? I mean, to unleash that talent. So.
And you couldn't be more spot on. The talent and the numbers continue to just improve. The specified training that these kids are going through at a younger and younger age, the talent's never been better. I think you could say differently about the baseball IQ and
I would
some
agree.
things
I would
like
agree
that.
100%. I think most of the coaches out there would say the same thing in terms of the baseball acumen has just been. Sometimes you're wondering, like, where have you guys been for the past 10 years?
Yeah. Yeah, and it brings me to talking about DGN, what you guys have done in the last few years. Like, you go from having a tough couple of years to then being really good, but at the same time, you are dealing with a dynamic that not many high school coaches have to deal with, and that's having a guy like George Wolkow. And it's a premium prospect, and the things that I think get lost on parents, outsiders, is what that actually brings on you. And I'd be curious, MLB scouts, how much are they talking to you about a George Wolkow? But then also, I just know, like, with them emailing you with, hey, when's Wolkow going to take BP? Hey, can we see him off an arm instead of a machine? Hey, is it going to be outside or inside today? Hey, what's the weather look like? How hard was that on you? And maybe hard's not the right way because you want to help out George any way you can, but there's so many different dynamics that I would love for you to shed some light on that.
Yeah, so there's obviously a ton of behind the scenes stuff. That obviously having, like you said, a dynamic player like Walkow that I wasn't aware of that much. We've had scouts obviously come to games and stuff like that, but just the amount of, like I said at times, like the need for almost an assistant during the day. If I think I went to the principal, she'd probably laugh at me, but just having like an assistant throughout the day just to kind of help with all the paperwork and stuff like that. Like you said, any type of practice, are we hitting inside, outside? The live BP that they want to see, they're not necessarily want to see machine. So like the live BP, when we doing that? The pregame BP, so you got these guys flying in. Coach, is the game going to happen? We don't have turf at Downers Grove North. We're the old school setup. And so like they'd want to see pregame BP on like end of March Saturday morning. It's like, guys, I'm worried about my field unthawing right now, let alone getting in some BP. And but honestly, to George's credit, we kind of came up with a system. We were able to kind of mass email out on scouts and stuff like that. So that cut down on a number of emails because, for a while there, we were getting every MLB team asking, hey, when are you guys hitting? Is the game still on? Like once we got into game schedule, hey, coach, is the game on? So not only do you have my team and communicating to them, but I'm also worried about communicating to all the scouts to make sure, like you said, like you kind of take it upon yourself. Like you obviously want your player to reach the highest level. Like that's any goal for any coach. You want your player to reach their sky's the limit. They want to reach their limits, so you try to do everything you possibly can. But like you said, there's a lot of other works involved and, making sure, hey, scouts are here. Hey, the regional scout's been to 10 of your games. Now we're going to fly in, a GM or assistant GM or something like that because we really like this guy. Can you verify you're going to play next, Thursday? And it's like, yeah, again, guys, we're in the state of Illinois here.
Have you ever been to Chicago before?
Correct.
Yeah.
And a lot of you guys haven't. They're like, man, this weather's not, especially if you get them from the south or something like that. These guys are, bundled up and buying coats at Dick's Sporting Goods and stuff like that, coming to our games at Downers Grove.
Well, and like the whole other piece of it is, you want to hit before a game on March 30th. Like you're talking about your field thawing up, but like we're not going to have any baseballs left after this game. We're going to ruin every single baseball trying to get you BP. And I'm going to steal some questions here. I know Tyler, Peter, Gavin, they all want to get in and ask you some stuff. And if you ever need to go, just let us know. But you had the Wolkow. But you've also had really good players alongside him. And a guy that we had come to really like was Jude Warwick. But I'll be the first to say I didn't think Jude Warwick was getting drafted.
No.
Okay, so was that a surprise to you? Was his whole because that's, I think, a whole another thing is like Wolkow's entire process is very different from a Jude
Correct.
Warwick's. And they both end up in Pro Bowl. So like what the heck was Jude's, whole process like? How different
Yeah.
was it? Did you have any talks? And yeah.
So
I
obviously,
just think it's a really cool dynamic you had to
so
deal with
obviously,
there.
Walkout came in as signed in 8th grade in South Carolina, Coach Kingston. So I'm getting this kid on campus, and he's already, a Gamecock, which was a little different dynamic. And Jude, the only reason why I knew Jude as an incoming freshman is because I had coached his brother Jack on one of the first teams I was an assistant varsity coach with when I helped out Coach Chad Isaacson. So I'm like, oh, great, we got a little Warwick, and then as the season went on, I'm like, oh, this kid's having a pretty good freshman year. But obviously, again, different dynamic. Walkow was a specimen coming in as a freshman. He was already 6'6", 195, 200 pounds as a 14-year-old, versus Warwick, who was, maybe 5'5", 5'6". Smash cut to sophomore year. He's tearing it up at the sophomore level. We're halfway through the season, and I pull him up for a Hinsdale Central series to play second base for us. And he comes in the Hinsdale Central series against them, and I think he goes like 4 for 4, batting, and then he just made contact, and that's when, they had Luke Adams and stuff like that. That's when Hinsdale Central was humming in terms of, they had 2 or 3 other guys.
They had some arms too, like Lucas Monosantos, good arm and multiple pitches for strikes. They had others.
Yeah, I
wish
mean,
it
they
was coming
were
from.
good, and Warwick came in as a sophomore, and this first at bat went 4 for 4. So then right there, we're kind of like, man, all right, we got a player here. But he's always been able to run. And one thing him and Walkout do have in common is they are like Jude's a freak athlete himself. Like he can do some acrobatic stuff. I mean, he can do a backflip and all that stuff. I mean, so that's something that they both, in terms of athleticism, I mean, had above average, if not freakishly athleticism built in, their DNA. But like you had said, Drew, the process was a little bit different. I mean, obviously he committed to Michigan State his junior year, Coach Boss over there. And really we weren't thinking much about MLB at all, and really coming to his senior year, I can remember having, we have meetings, begin with kind of set expectations and stuff like that. And there wasn't much talk about MLB, and then, I think it's Matt Zamuta's Detroit scout that just hounded him here. He was a guy, he'd be texting me, again, like you said, like the nonstop. He'd be texting me at 6:30 on a Saturday morning. Hey, coach, I'm at school. Let me know when you guys are getting here for pregame. Be like, I have a 3-year-old kid at home. The game's not till 10 o'clock. I'm going to be at school in about 45 minutes. Luckily I do live close, but he's
Trying to stay married here.
He's waiting there, waiting to see his pregame swings at school. And it was more and more like, hey, this guy's coming around. Some other teams started kicking the tires a little bit. And I think it was probably like in April, May. I remember we had a conversation with him, and I had a conversation with Mom at Legion after a game. And, she's like, they think there's a possibility, there's some interest in the MLB thing. And then toward the end of the year, Jude took the bull by the horns last year and really carried us in the playoffs. I mean, we had him on the mound, closing out games, obviously hitting the walk-off in the sectional championship and stuff like that. And that's when he got an invite, down, to try the pre-draft workout at Comerica Park. And it was kind of like, man, there's going to be a legit option here, and still, we're still like in May. And so he was starting to ponder that option of, Michigan State versus, possible MLB. And, fast forward a month and a half or something like that and into the draft. And he heard his, got the phone call. And like I said, the Detroit Tigers were on him right away. And they were the guys that probably watched him the most. I think Matt saw something in him early, just with terms of, he's always had a solid glove, in terms of being able to in range and stuff like that, plus runner, your guys showcase and stuff like that. And so he got the call, and next thing you know, he's a Detroit Tiger. So
Well, that is an awesome story. Couldn't be happier for Jude. We were in the same boat, kind of just really liked the progression he was on, the athlete he was. And he was a guy for me, saw him in showcase for the first time, but then saw him in a game and plays up in a game. The swing's good in the showcase. He's going to put up the measurables. Like, he's going to run, but the way he played shortstop is just different in a game. The way he played on the move, the instincts, and then the bat-to-ball skills at the plate always didn't amaze me, but I was always impressed. And the way he could shoot the ball to all fields. And then listening to you talk, bringing up Luke Adams, that's Michigan State losing 2 guys. They had Luke Adams committed as well. Yeah. And then now Jude Warwick, 2 guys they lost to the draft. And Luke wasn't necessarily one that they thought they'd lose either, but he's doing well in pro ball.
Yeah, he's like in the Brewers organization. I know that the Brewers just drafted a stud third baseman, but I think he's still looking to move up, and he's high in the organization in terms of what they're looking to do in the future.
I don't know all the different publications and whatnot, but I did see he was a top 10 prospect in the organization for one of them. But Tyler, Peter, Gavin, I've done a ton of talking here. I want to open up the floor to you guys. What do you guys have for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, thanks for hopping on. Kind of sticking on this Wolkow and Warwick topic. Did it do anything for the rest of the guys to see, and like Janicki too? I know he didn't get drafted this year, but the guys at that caliber and that level. Did that do anything for them? Like, to see those guys firsthand, see the Wolkows and the Warwicks get drafted. Does that, like, could you tell, like, was that doing anything for them mentally? Like, did it motivate them?
It's definitely inspired growth. I mean, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, like I said, I coach football in the fall. We started workouts the first week of October, and we had over 50 kids, at our workouts and stuff like that. I mean, which for us is pretty big. Usually it's 20, 25 kids working out off season and stuff like that. And we opened the gym, like I said, the first week in October, and like I said, there's been over 50 kids, and it's been constant throughout. So this is that winning culture. Obviously, seeing these guys go to the next level and kind of show them the path. Like everyone says they want to do it. Obviously, we know the numbers out there. It's tough to do, but just to have back-to-back years with kids getting drafted relatively high, it's kind of inspired these guys to kind of continue to work and put more effort in than they have already been doing. So. I think it's also inspired the community a little bit. I mean, I think the community kind of gets behind these guys, especially with Walkow, Landon with the White Sox. I unfortunately am a White Sox fan, so I've been, hurt in the past year or so. But, guys like him, watching him, I think it's going to be awesome for the community and, just the local baseball fans to hopefully, see this out and see a couple guys work through the minors and hopefully make it one day.
Going off Jimmy Janicki, and I used to say Janicki, and now I'm in my own head on, like, is it Janicki or Janicki? It's Janicki, correct?
What?
It's Janicki.
It's Janicki. I mean, I am in class.
Yeah, it's Janicki.
Maybe I screwed it up. Maybe I
No, I'm going Janicki.
It's Janicki.
Well, either way, we've long been a huge fan of him, and it also kind of correlates to you being the football coach because he was a big football player.
Right.
And from what I know about you, you were a 3-sport guy when you were a high school athlete at DGN. Yep. Long-standing DGN family. Your dad went through DGN as well, right. So like tons of pride over there, which you love to see. You go back to, to your alma mater, and now you're, hopefully helping out that next generation of student athletes or just students in general. So really cool there that I love to see, and I love seeing you being a 3-sport athlete. But that was kind of back when I was graduating high school. I was in 04 out of Naperville North. And with you being a football coach, how hard is it in today's day and age? Is it still doable? I know Jimmy, did it and got hurt, but then came back. How many baseball players have crossover? I just kind of want to go down that path. The multi-sport path. I
mean, in terms of the multi-sport athlete, obviously a school like Downers Grove North, we're kind of in between. We're not quite with the big dogs, and we're not the smalls. We're fairly big with 2,200 kids, but we want our kids, having playing multiple sports, like you said. I see the value in it. And just in terms of the mentality, especially with football. And there's something to be said about, basically, banging against one another for, 13, 14 weeks out of the year. It takes some fortitude to do that. I mean, it's not easy, and I think like in terms of having those multi-sport guys, especially a football, baseball combo, you see that with just the ability to overcome, that resiliency to overcome, hey, I'm 0 for 3 at the plate right now, and I got to go up again. You know what I mean? And like am I going to shut down? Or, am I going to get out there and try to battle any way I can to get on base for this team? And I think that's one thing with football that definitely translates over. Drew, you're asking about the viability of it. It's definitely getting harder and harder, and especially in the summertime. That's where I see it the most. That's where you almost feel bad for the kids just because they're getting pulled in multiple different directions, and me, like, I never want to be the person I'm not looking to burn someone out, like, I get it. Like, you're going to have your main sport and you're going to have other ones that you enjoy playing, so we all got to make decisions with that. I mean, even with Walkout, we had basketball with him. He was part of the state, they made it down the Final Four for the.
I remember that now that you said that. Yeah.
So, I mean, we didn't have Walkout for 2 preseasons in a row. I mean, he was out for the first couple of weeks. Not that he wasn't hitting or throwing, but, he wasn't part of any of the team aspect, team portions of the first couple of weeks, which a lot of install and stuff like that. But, I mean, those are things that you live with. You know what I mean? Like, he's getting all the exposure, all the, I mean, he's playing in front of, down in Illinois in terms of just that battle mentality that, you can't teach that. You know what I mean? So, like I said, the summers right now are where the multi-sport athlete is getting pulled the hardest, because even with basketball now, AAU's now trickled into April. You know what I mean? So you're getting kids that are having to choose between playing AAU basketball and also playing baseball, just because all the AAU tournaments now, obviously over the weekend, stuff like that. And it causes kids a lot of times they're forcing the hand just because they want a solidified roster, just like we all do. We don't want moving pieces. Like, I understand that. But that's the problem that we're running into a little bit is during that summertime. During the season, for the most part, I think that, at least what Downers Grove North we've done is kind of just worked. Joe Herreni, the football coach here, Jim Thomas, the basketball coach. I mean, we talk daily. Just because we share a number of athletes, and just that collaboration, I think, helps us, try to maximize our players' efforts and making sure that we're helping each other out, not pulling from one another and creating an atmosphere that's not conducive to building an athlete. And that's what we're trying to do at Downers Grove North is produce these athletes that we've had. I mean, we've had a number of athletes the past 3 or 4 years, D1, where in years past we haven't had those athletes come through, or maybe they just haven't decided to play a sport here. But
Well,
yeah,
it's refreshing to hear that you strive to allow athletes to do that. At least that's what it sounds like, because it's from where we sit, it's never been harder to be a multi-sport guy, and the cohesion within the school. But then also with the summer programs, with the, hey, how hard is your summer coach going to be on you if you miss something? It's a total cohesive effort that, depending on the school, I think has created a ton of dynamics for these players.
Yes.
And we talk about it all the time, whether you're from a smaller school in Illinois or you're just a high-level athlete that wants to play multiple sports, at the high school you're at. Like, we're going to value that player at a higher level if all else is the same.
Correct.
Because I think you touched on one of the most important things, and that's just the competing aspect of it, and the hard-nosed, toughness, and being able to handle failure, which in our game is one of the toughest sports you're going to deal with, one of the most humbling sports you're going to deal with, and it only gets harder as you climb the ladder.
Yeah. I mean, you guys touched upon it. I mean, obviously Janicki was conference player of the year for us 2 years in a row. I think this year LT had Tucker King play football, which I love seeing him out there. I mean, here's a guy that signed with Cincinnati, just going out there competing, helping LT run the table in the regular season. Just just being I mean, he's a dude on the mound, and he's out there, smashing his head in for, 12 weeks out of the year.
Yep.
Johnny Nelson, Oak Park, he's another guy I think that's got a high ceiling and stuff like that. He was their QB. I mean, it's just awesome. It's kind of like, it's funny when you see these guys each week, and you see them like, you're quietly pulling for them a little bit. I mean, just because you like to see them be successful. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. So
Represent your conference
Correct.
too. Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, Gavin, I kind of want to turn this into next spring. And Coach, I don't know how much time you have
I got
left
like
here.
15 minutes.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, I'll just give you the floor. Preview next spring's roster for us. What are you looking forward to in 2025 with your squad?
So obviously next year, we're coming off the 30-win season, as Drew said in the intro. We have 15 returners coming back from that squad. Obviously missing 2 or 3 big pieces with, Janicki, Warwick. Llewellyn was another big arm, our ace last year at Minnesota State right now. But hopefully with those 15 returners, we got a different makeup. I mean, we got like 7 guys, I believe, committed to going the junior college route. So, I mean, we got talent. I think we got some guys that, have something to prove, and maybe played behind some guys the past few years. So obviously, I've been kind of thinking and talking with my coaches in terms of, we might not be the world's sexiest team like we have been the past few years in terms of being able to drive the ball out of the park and having, draft picks here and there. But I think we're going to be a really fundamentally sound team, and a team that's hungry, and looking to prove that, it hasn't been a fluke the past couple of years. So I'm excited about these guys. Like I said, I think out of those 15 returners, we got 14 seniors, so we'll be, a senior-led team. And like I said, like overall, there's a lot of guys out there that are working hard right now. And maybe a little bit of chip on their shoulder that they haven't gotten that D1 call yet or the follow up or anything like that from those coaches, and they're looking to have a big senior year for us.
No, that's awesome. I mean, older teams win in high school baseball, so that's got to be encouraging that you got 14 of those returners are seniors. I want to talk a little bit about your pitching staff now for 2025. Give the listener, just a few guys we should have our eyes on this spring.
So we're gonna have Braylon Tomlinson was a lefty for us. Kind of came on last year. Just a guy that the ball moves. Like he's been a great success story. Transferred to us from Oklahoma as a sophomore, and so he was kind of unknown to us. Came out sophomore year, made the JV team, and last year worked his way into pitching some really big innings and really big games for us. He got some experience, late in the playoffs. So he's one arm we're looking at. Zach Zaroli is another one. He got injured early in the season, but was having some success early on. He got some early innings for us. We went go down to Tennessee. He pitched down there and pitched a few other starts for us before he got injured with his knee. But he's on schedule making his comeback. I mean, he's a guy, another lefty for us that can spin a breaking ball. So we're excited about him. Those are two of our guys that we're excited about in that logged innings last year.
Coach Tomlinson, he threw against Lincoln Way West, didn't he? When you guys matched up, yeah, he's a good little arm. He's good. Competed
his butt off against those guys. He kept us in the game. Unfortunately, we were outnumbered that game with only one hit, I believe. I think that came in the last inning. But
2 outs.
Yeah. But he kept it close. I think he gave up 3 or 4 runs. Gave us an opportunity. No, we're excited about those guys, and like I said, hopefully using the off season and early season to kind of figure out where guys go, after that. So
I have a follow up off of that because Peter mentioned you played Lincoln Way West last year. I saw you against Lincoln Way West over at their place. Kind of an awkward, interesting game, but it seems like you guys have beefed up or just always beef up your non-con. Is that on purpose? Do you have certain relationships that, hey, you like playing these guys? Like, what's your mindset behind that?
My mindset is I want to play the best. You know, I mean, like that's day in, day out. I want to play the best. And so, like, yeah, last year we picked up Joliet Catholic. We played them down there. We've been playing Lincoln Way West for the past few years. We picked them up. A couple years ago, we picked up Naz. You know, like I'm always looking. I'm always the firm believer of I want to see the best. That way, come playoff time, you know, we're battle tested. Obviously, our conference schedule is tough to begin with. I mean, just with the LTs of the world, Oak Parks, Yorks. You know, I mean, we face good competition during the week. But anytime I can pick up that game, you know, I'm willing to do it. You know, I'm not like obviously, you know, we've won some games the past few years, but necessarily the wins and loss record, I'm not stressing over that. You know, we talk about we stress like the journey, being ready. Hey, when it's playoff time, we want to be playing our best ball. You know, so seeing those teams like you know, I thought we played a tough one against Joliet Catholic last year. We had an opportunity last inning or so. I think we actually got called out trying to steal third in the last inning. We had runners on, and you know, didn't go our way. But I think that was a game that kind of set us up, and that was like the last. We had about 2 or 3 weeks before this season was going to end, and I think we end up that previous week we had played Lincoln Way, and then we played Joliet Catholic down there, and I think those games just kind of set us on an upward trend, even though they both didn't go our way. You know, heck, we say baseball is you know, like life, and you know what some of your best lessons are in losses. So I'm like I said, I'm a firm believer in picking up those games. You know, even though we're maybe going to throw our numbers 5 or 6 starter at them, you know, I'm going to take my lineup and I have faith in my 9 guys and see what we can do. You know, so.
It's refreshing to hear, and it was a similar approach when we talked to Tim Funkhauser down at Edwardsville that he has, because he's not afraid to play anybody. He loves the competition.
He's got some boys coming back as we ran into him in the Elite Eight, but yeah, Tim's a great guy. Just obviously talking with him during that game and what he's kind of done for high school baseball, but yeah, Tim's got some boys coming back, and I'll be looking for Edwardsville in your preseason top 25, probably in the top 10.
They'll be in there somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they'll be in there somewhere. There's a lot of talent that tends to roll through that place, and he does it right. And that's what's so just been so good with doing this and talking to high school coaches that are in it for the right reason, and hearing that you're getting a mental coach. You know, you're looking for ways to improve your program, and like that's what it's all about. You know, not just there's some sports or some coaches or some schools where maybe it's just, hey, I want to collect a stipend. You know, I want to, and you're in it. You were an athlete, and I love it, and you've had talent, and you're trying to get the most out of them, and that to me is what this is all about. And I don't know if the other guys have any other questions. The only thing I wanted to kind of pick your brain on is there one program or one player that's not, you know, with you guys that has stood out to you in the past? Not even talent, like just like, man, I freaking love this kid. I love the way they play, or maybe it is talent, or maybe it's everything. Just if anything came to the top of your mind, I think it actually helps us do our job better too. Like, okay, yeah.
Trying to think right now. You know, I always feel like York's players do a great job. Dave Kalal over there is just him and I he's a guy that I enjoy coaching against every single time. I mean, not only are we going after each other, but just the laughs that we have in between innings and stuff like that. I mean, the subtle jokes and stuff like that. I mean, he's and doing that, and also, you know, we're trying to beat each other. But I think he year in year out is a team that I'm always like, they do things the right way. I know the ball's going to be down the zone. I know they're going to field it. And it's just like one of those things where no matter what the record is, you know it's going to be a close game, because those are two things that he stresses every single day. You know, I mean, so just a lot of those players over there. Like I said, Kevin Dede over at LT. Like I said, we talked about Tucker King earlier. You know, we were in warm-ups. One of my assistant coaches works on Friday nights, and Tucker came over and shook his hand and just said, you know, hi, Coach, how you doing? You know, good to see you. You know, can't wait to see you in the spring. Like things like that. Like my assistant coach came over and told me, he's like, that's just something awesome to hear. You know what I mean? Like that's bigger than the game. I mean, that's a person doing it the right way. That's why Cincinnati's getting a steal with him in terms of what they're getting.
Yeah. Maybe a shout out to his parents
Correct.
too,
I mean,
just raising them the right
yep,
way. And we need to see more and more of that. And kids that are handling their business and being mature on the
yep.
field and just going about life and the way they play the game the right
Which
way. And that's,
which is bigger, like, and you're talking about
yep.
what parents want. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know what? Not everyone's going to get a scholarship. It's about what lessons are you going to learn? I mean, that's what we try to stress. Like, life lessons are learned through baseball, through sports. And I think we probably all sitting here would agree that some of our most instrumental learning and development happened on the playing field. I think that's why we're all involved in this great sport. So
Great stuff. I don't have anything else. Gavin, Tyler, Peter, thank you
No, thank you. I
guys.
don't want to make you late for
oh,
class.
you guys
I
are
really
good.
appreciate it,
Hell,
though.
don't worry about it.
Thank you, Coach. And we will be following your program. And it's been a pleasure to see kind of what you guys have done there the last few years. And not just to see the George Wilcows of the world, getting there and seeing a Brady Shalemoser and a Russell Oros and a, Ian Check. And I could go on and on here. But just a lot of guys that you mentioned, 7, I think you said, that are going to play JUCO
Yeah.
ball that have ceilings that are higher than that JUCO that they're going to. They're using that as a vehicle, as a springboard to get to that next step afterwards. And your depth has always been really impressive as well. And can't wait to see kind of what these future years hold and who's the next guy coming out of there. But congrats on the recent success.
Thank you very
and
much.
Keep it going. And thanks for taking the time. And it's been a great conversation. So I'll be rooting for you.
Drew, Tyler, Peter, Gavin, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And like I said in the intro, all the stuff you guys do for high school baseball and baseball in general, hats off to you guys. So.
All right, well, now we are welcoming on Skyler Mead, the head baseball coach at Troy University. And Skyler, this is something that, means a lot for me that you're willing to come on here, take time out of your day. I know you're busy. I know you're coming off Thanksgiving break. With these podcasts, we're trying to bring on people that we know, that we maybe have history with, that have, had some experience in Illinois baseball, but you're in the college baseball landscape. You've been in it for a long time. We want to give the viewers, the listeners, just as much information as possible. I want to introduce them to you, but you've had a long college coaching career. Even though you're young still, you've been to multiple places. You've spent plenty of time recruiting the state of Illinois. And you and I, just personally, I've been lucky enough to get to know you through the years. And my first job out of playing college baseball was coaching with you at Eastern Illinois University. And I think it was your second year coaching when I came in to the Panthers there and got to know you. And you've been integral in my, just professional baseball career here, getting out of playing college. And by professional, I mean just working, whether it was coaching in college baseball or now doing the prep baseball thing. So a little background on you. You played at the University of Louisville. You are a Louisville guy. You went to Ballard High School. And if I got this right, I know you'd probably want me to say, but you were a two-way guy out of high school, getting recruited over there to Louisville. And then your first job after playing at Louisville, playing in the College World Series, was at Eastern Illinois. Jim Schmitz brought you on to coach pitchers. And then after Eastern Illinois, you went to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State, then made your way up to Michigan State, then out to South Carolina in the SEC, and then you got your first head coaching job here with Troy University. So there's a lot of records and things that you've done at these schools that we can get into at some point. But that is a long-winded introduction. Thank you for coming on, and definitely looking forward to this interview.
Absolutely. No, I'm pumped to be on here with you guys, especially you, Drew. Yes, we did get to coach together, which is crazy. It was 15 years ago now. You were rolling into Charleston, Illinois from playing golf. I think you were playing golf somewhere in Indiana before rolling in town, and we
That
got
sounds
to
about
start
right.
got to start our journey together there in Charleston under Coach Schmitz. So no, fired up to be on here, and hopefully this is a great podcast with you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you. And sounds about right. You got to play a little golf, get the mind right, and get everything out. And then there you go. I meet Skyler Mead for the first time, and the rest is history. And I just want to get into, you are a young head coach. How old are you right now?
I'm 40. I'm trying to
Okay.
look 25 as long as I can. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I feel weird saying it I feel like I say it to my players from time to time, like this will be my 18th year in coaching, which is pretty astonishing to say out loud. But 18 years in the college game, 23rd if you count, going in as a player. So I've seen what now would be a lot of college baseball, a lot of different things, a lot of exciting things over the years.
Well, I have a couple questions, and it's hard to pick which one I want to start with. But from your days at EIU, you're a young recruiter getting out there. You were young, aggressive, very good at what you did. I know you made an impression with Sean Duncan early on, just with prep baseball, and it's starting in Illinois. But like, how have things changed? And it's probably too long of a topic to even get into. But from the time you were recruiting guys at EIU to where you are now at Troy with transfer portal stuff, NIL, all that, high school recruiting classes versus JUCO classes. I know we used to bring in, some JUCO guys at EIU, but are there some major differences that stick out to you that these high school, players could benefit from?
Whew. Man, there's a lot of things that have changed since me and Dan Hartleb used to sit at the old Stevenson showcase under the press box canopy there in 2008. I mean, it's a different world, not just in the talent of the players, but I think what it means for high school kid being recruited. Obviously, I do have a long history with the state of Illinois and Sean Duncan, and I think it's interesting, just. I think the evolution of like a prep baseball report, not just because I'm on here with you guys, but like the evolution of prep baseball report, but also the evolution of college baseball. I think they've they've intersected, but there's also been like many of things that have paralleled one another, in the growth of your all's company, but also the growth and change of college baseball. I see a lot of, things that have blended together, and the days of just recruiting guys in the summer and having a high school only class, or I know at EIU, as you said, we certainly got in some JUCOs with the state of Illinois and beyond, but it's a new world.
What about the type of player? The type of athlete you're looking for, has it changed? What you're able to take now in the high school classes? I feel like just seeing it from afar, from back when I was in the college game, is some of these Division I's, even 5 years ago, it's not that long ago, they were able to take a high school guy that maybe wasn't fully physically developed and dream on them a little bit. What's changed there with the high school athlete? What are you looking for? How ready do they have to be for you to be willing to offer a guy?
Cool. Even if you think they're ready, you still have fear because, the average age in college baseball has been just so old, since COVID. But with the roster limitations that are coming forward and everybody's, I guess, hunger to win immediately and often, like you do have some fear and getting too young too quick, because that can be really tough in the game right now. There's not a lot of, Jimmy Janicki's out there, like a guy who's on our roster who is an outlier, a guy that can play anywhere in the country that's going to be a superstar for us. You got to really be certain that this kid is not just physically ready, but like he's got to be mentally tough, because you got to come in ready to handle the game in a lot of different aspects. You got to be able to handle failure. You got to be able to be competitive and against older players and be able to not just hold your own, but thrive. And so I think high school recruiting classes are going to kind of shrink, at least a place like us that is always going to still get good junior college players, being down here in the South near the Panhandle with all the great junior colleges in our area. We certainly are national in terms of our scope of recruiting. I mean, we have 23 states and Australia on our roster, so we go anywhere and everywhere. But the high school guy has got to be on their game. They got to be ready in so many different ways, because your point of, hey, this guy is a developmental piece and he'll be ready in 3 years, I think some of those days are kind of done, at least if you're trying to have elite and high aspirations like we do here at Troy.
Yeah, I love you bringing up Troy, because I want to get into Troy. It's been a program that has had success in the past. We were looking at the records before you got there. And it's been a winning program. It seems like a place where you can consistently win. I'm not saying it's easy, but I know they've invested in sports. They've invested in your athletic facilities there with the baseball program. But like, tell the viewers here in Illinois that maybe aren't as familiar with it. Like you mentioned, you recruit nationally. You're gonna get into Illinois. You're gonna watch Team Illinois at the future games. But what are you trying to do there at Troy? Since you have gotten there, you have done nothing but win. You had a 40-win season. You went to a regional. I know that you have even higher hopes than that. But what are you trying to do to build a roster? I know it's not only you. You've got a great staff down there with you. Ben Walgamont, one of my favorite people out there. I think he's one of the best assistant coaches in the game right now, and I think he's also a great compliment to you. One of those guys out there that, one of those few guys that can humble you. He's not afraid to say what he needs to say. And I have a ton of respect for you, the whole staff. But yeah, what are you trying to do down there at Troy? And let's educate the viewers.
Well, first off, just to educate the viewer, I mean, Troy, University, we're down here in Troy, Alabama, but to give some context where that is, I mean, we're 2 hours south of Birmingham. We're less than an hour slightly southeast of Montgomery. We're less than 2 hours from the beach. We can get to the Destin beaches in a shade under 2 hours. We're 2 hours and 45 minutes from Atlanta. So we're in certainly it's warm. I know it looks like it might be really cold today, but it's going to be a high of 57 here, which is cold for us. That's why I'm wearing all this hoodie and vest right now. But we're a program that, and this is not just something I say here on this podcast, and we're a program, our goals are we want to be able to win a national championship. We think we can do anything and everything here with the resources of our new $13 million facility that we're in right now, the way that we can recruit, what we believe in our staff and the level of talent we can get in here. Just to give some context to the viewer, first off, as it relates to the state of Illinois, I mean, I talked about Jimmy, who was a top 5 player in the state of Illinois that we got here to Troy, who is unbelievable. Noah Manning is a person who was on our roster last 2 years, was an all-conference player, was a preseason All-American last year, a sidearm closer. I think he ended up with like 18 saves in 2 years. Manuka kid that came to our program out of Iowa Western and did amazing things. Benny Thompson, not from the state of Illinois, but it was John A. Logan was, second best stuff plus in the country behind Paul Skeens and 23s in the Angels organization. Just to name a few guys that we've gotten just from Illinois itself. But, look, we have a conference that's top 5 in the country in the Sun Belt. Each of the last 3 years, there's been 4 teams that are in the NCAA tournament. There's 4 programs in the country, 4 programs in the country that have had a semifinalist for the Golden Spikes, which for the viewer who maybe is not familiar, that's our Heisman. We've had 2 different players, one in 23, Shane Lewis, and one in 24, Brooks Bryan, that were semifinalists for that award. There's only 4 schools in the country that have done it, us, LSU, Clemson, and Wake Forest. So we try to do big things. We were ranked in the top 25 last year, which hadn't happened here in 11 years. Our aspirations are on a national level. Make no mistake about it. What we're trying to do is not just something good in our league or good in the Southeast or good for outside of the P4. We're trying to be one of the best programs in the country, and I think we have everything in place to do it. We just need time to get to the season here again ahead, and for us to just keep pushing the envelope forward as we've done over our 3 years so far.
Well, and just being in the college game and seeing it, I think consistently winning year after year after year is one of the hardest things and the most underappreciated things. Being in the Big Ten, it seemed like one school would have their year every couple years, but to do it consistently is extremely hard. And I think that's something that, looking at your records here, and I just want to pull it up so I don't mess it up. But looking at your records, you guys you were 32-24 your first year. Then you go 40-22 your second year. You play in a regional. Then you go 37-22. You play in the Sun Belt Tournament semifinals. In 2023, that team was extremely special, just watching it from afar. And you guys had, a really, really good opportunity to go 2-0 there in the regional. We're down to the final out. Things happen. But team bounces back, wins again next year. I know your aspirations are extremely high, but I want to. Your last answer took me a ton of different places. I wanted to get into Noah Manning. I wanted to get into some of these Illinois guys that you have there. Right? Jimmy Janicki. I know you brought in Noah Edders. But even besides that, like you mentioned your conference, college baseball is extremely, extremely tough. And I feel like your program, there's no easy wins. You schedule your non-cons, your midweeks, they're against SEC programs. You're playing at bipartisan venues, these pro parks down there, they're drawing tons of crowd. Like, how the heck do you go about making your schedule? Because there's a ton of dynamics to it. And just talking to you in the past, like you want your strength of schedule to be strong enough, but you got to win games. So how do you do it?
Well, no, that's a great question. And it's funny. I was just talking to my wife about this the other day, and she had made the comment she couldn't believe all the, dynamics that go into scheduling and just how important it is to be very strategic. And there's no perfect. There's certainly some luck in it. You look at 2023, our non-con strength of schedule was number 5, and our overall non-con was 13. Like we were one of 2 schools in the country, us and East Carolina, to be in the top 20 like that. But we had some fortune of USC Upstate being 64th in the country, who we swept. Evansville being 65th, who we swept. Playing Florida Gulf Coast twice, who was a top 55 program. Like you have just some different things that can help you when maybe going into it, you didn't know exactly where they would be. And those are 3 programs that are always really good, but you just didn't know where they would be from an RPI perspective. But what you try to do is make sure that we can schedule home games. People want to come down south and play. So we might have the ability to get some good teams to come in and play us. You look at 2022 and 2024, we played Indiana home and home. So they came down to us in 2022 and we swept them. And then we returned the trip in the cold this year to Indiana and won 2 of 3 games at their place. Which when you do things such as that scheduling wise, you think it's going to put you in a great spot come the end of May. Right? That's the goal. You want to make sure that if you win, we look at it like this, if you win 35 games or more, which I think is a standard or barometer in college baseball, do you have a schedule that's going to put you in the mix to be an at-large team? Obviously, everybody wants to win their league. That is certainly a goal of our program. But do you put yourself in the mix to be one of those teams? Or do you schedule Cupcake City, quote unquote, or a weak schedule, and you win a lot of games, but your RPI or your metrics are not good? Now, look, we're benefited by being in the Sun Belt, which is, like I said, a top 5 league. That's no mistake. I mean, you look at what you get benefit from that. But for us, right, like our midweeks, we play Alabama twice this year. We play Auburn. We play at Mississippi State. We play at Virginia Tech. We play Samford. You can continue going down the list. I just name a few there. Those are our midweeks. And then, you're still going to play at Louisiana. You have Coastal Carolina. Our league, there's no gimmies. I've told many people, and the SEC is the creme de la creme. Look, I got to experience it for 4 years in South Carolina. The SEC is the juggernaut that everyone says it is. But I think our league has a lot of similarities in the sense that there's no freebies. It's tough to go play at places. Home field advantage is a real thing. When you go win on the road, it's a big deal, both just to get it done and win on the road, but what it also can do for you metrically. You look at us last year when we swept Coastal Carolina when they were ranked 13th in the country. I mean, our RPI went up 31 spots just sweeping them on a weekend. So, like, it matters how you schedule, and then obviously going out there and doing your job and winning. Our goal, and Drew, my affinity for basketball all these years. I look at it like, people always felt about the Michigan States with, all these years with Izzo, or when Louisville was rolling with Patino and all that. My goal for our program is for us to have a shot every year. That does not mean that the breaks are always going to fall your way, but my goal is, as we hit May every year, we should be a team in the conversation to maybe win our league, but to also be in the NCAA tournament. That is the goal every single year. Our goals are not just, hey, let's have good years and do whatever. If we're in the conversation and we have the talent every year, then fate's going to take over after that. I hope that, and don't get me wrong, we can all be humbled in this game. We all know that. But my goal is we never have a year where we go in and go, we don't have aspirations to be great come May. If we're constantly there in the mix, then we will have a chance to make our run or runs each and every year as the calendar turns.
And I love to hear it. And every coach should have that mindset, right? But what I love about yours is you have the talent on the roster, to speak that way and to believe that and to compete for that. And you continue to build your roster and elevate it. And it's been impressive to see. And we've talked a lot about Troy here. I want to get into Skyler Me. You are the head coach at Troy for a reason. At the age of 40, every stop that you've gone, your pitchers, you're a pitching coach, your pitchers have, I don't know the right way to put it, not exceeded expectations, because you're probably have the highest expectations on them as anybody, but they have performed, and most notably in the strikeout category. So just sitting back there, not knowing a ton about your philosophy or what you're doing at these different stops that you've made, but everywhere that you've gone, and guys, if you have the stats in front of you, Skyler, you probably know the stats. Feel free to just drop anything in there, but I know you set program records at Michigan State with strikeouts, single season strikeouts for your staff. But what the heck is the secret sauce? What are you doing with these guys? How are you getting in there and kind of just cementing, what you do? And clearly it works, and clearly it feeds into the players because you see the results, and the results speak. People could talk all they want to talk. Look at the results. So what the heck are you doing?
Well, there's certainly no secret sauce, and I certainly think I've done a good job, but we're certainly not perfect. There's things we can get a lot better on, and I think this year even some alterations that we made from last year will hopefully benefit us, and we'll see the fruits of those labor. But all 5 places that I've coached, we've set a strikeout record while I'm there, and some years the next year you set another record, just like we did here at Troy my first 2 years. To me, I'm going to give you not to be like cliche, but I'm going to give you a really simple answer, but I think you would understand this because you and I did work together at EIU, and I give tons of credit to this guy. But, when you work for, Jimmy Schmitz, as I did in my first job, one of the things you really do appreciate is you just coach every single day as hard as you can. And maybe I would have done that without having that guidance at 22, beginning my coaching career. But one thing that I know I've done every single day is coach as hard as I can. I do not take a practice off. I've never walked into a practice in 18 years with a bad attitude or low energy. We give our best to our guys every day. Look, certainly there's things that we do systematically that we believe in, and I know this isn't a pitching podcast or Zoom. There's certain things that we do, in our dailies and our correctives, and how we develop breaking balls and what we emphasize and usage and all that. That's a whole nother rabbit hole, but we coach our guys every single day as hard as we can. And I think that resonates with players. And I think that's also why there's been a lot of guys that, maybe going into it, you look at them and you're like, hey, I'll use Noah Manning.
I was going to say, you reinvented Noah Manning from what I understand.
You look at Noah Manning, was an over-the-top guy who had a 17 or a 16 ERA in junior college baseball. That's not made up. He had a not very good second year, and we had to really, get in there and do a lot of things to, change and alter him. And to be quite frank, Noah, or a lot of players for that matter, over the years, the Cody Tollisons, the Matt Millers is a guy, Drew, I think you saw that we had changed to a sidearm that gave him at least ability to have success. A Mike Hoekstra, there's all these guys that made big alterations and whatever those may be, and then they end up finding success. But maybe Hoekstra would be a little bit different in the sense of where he was rated on our roster. But our goal is, if you treat the last player on the roster the same as the first player, you're going to get guys to raise up, and you're going to find diamonds in the rough. And if you can have enough of those and elevate your best players, then you can be great. One of the things that in my career, I think that was an exciting challenge, and something that I don't want to say nobody coaches to just prove anything to anyone maybe other than themselves, because in the end, like, you got to look yourself in the mirror daily. But when you get to South Carolina, there's certainly a different level of talent in which you have on the roster, or at least can get to coach from a starting point. And I think my biggest takeaway from my time at South Carolina, at least maybe like if you really had somebody put a lie detector to me, was it was good to show that we could coach guys that were already talented and elevate their game as well, rather than just taking a guy that came from nowhere. That was big for me. I know that's something that always is going to be questioned when you're coaching high level talent, is can you make them still perform even though they've come in with, they may have turned down $1 million out of high school. Like, hey, they turned down $1 million, but they want to be a guy that gets $2+ million. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to develop them? How are you going to elevate what's already a good game? And that's something that I feel like if you want to be a great coach, you got to be well-rounded in all. You got to be able to take, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but a 0 to something, a guy that's, got some skills, but he needs to develop. But you can also take the high-end talent and let him be a professional, elevate his process into being a big leaguer. But I only think you do that by totally investing every single day. And I know that we do that. I know that I do that. It doesn't make me perfect, but I can sit on here on this Zoom just as I can in front of my team, just as I can in front of my coaches. And I know that every single day we go at it as hard as we can. Even if you make a mistake, you're going at it full tilt. And if every coach does that in college baseball, that's great. I don't know if everyone does. I know in our program, that's the expectation. And it's helped us, and it's allowed us to do some pretty unique things quickly here. But as I said earlier, we still got a lot of work to do. But to me, that if you said, hey, is there a secret sauce, that would be our secret sauce, or maybe secret potion.
Well, I love it, and I lived it for a full year with you. I saw the energy and the competitiveness and the passion every single day in the office. Not even with the guys, talking about the guys, or what are you going to do, to get them better today? And then, actually when you get your hands on them, and how you are with the guys in practice, and how I know, I don't know if you're still like this. I think you are, but you take a lot of pride in trying to be in better shape than the guys. Like just getting after it, throwing with them, playing catch with them before their starts, just really getting in there. It reminds me, you talk about how you have love for basketball. Like, it reminds me of the Jim Harbaugh version of football. Like, he's doing the tire flips with Justin Herbert, and he's getting in there and he's chest pumping them and all that stuff. And there's a level of connection there that I think you develop, and I've seen it. But I want to open this up to our guys here. Tyler, Peter, Gavin, I've done a bunch of the question asking. Who wants to start here? I know you guys have a bunch of questions, so let's fire away at Skyler.
Yeah, I'll hop in here. Coach, we've talked about, since we're on the topic of pitching, when you go out and you're scouting arms, when you're at the future games, are there certain qualities that you're kind of checking boxes when you're watching to get those guys in your program that you think you can help continue to develop and get to that next level?
Yeah, I think so. I know I get asked that question a lot. I mean, for me, look, I think number one, they do need to probably perform. It goes back to the original question Drew asked a little bit ago, the high school guy. To me, I think performance still matters. I would have, when I say respect, I guess I mean it respectfully, but I have more respect for the guy that's 84, 86 that's performing than the guy that might be 90, 93 and he gives up 5 runs every inning, but everyone says he has talent. To me, you can develop the repertoire and the strength and let's be honest, you can develop velocity. I'll give a quick story of an Illinois guy. I know this is off topic and I'll get back on it, but Will Kincaid was a guy that I recruited years ago to Middle Tennessee State. I never got to coach him. I ended up, going to Michigan State. But Will Kincaid, guy that played with top tier, big athletic basketball guy, crazy competitive, could spin a breaking ball 79, 80, but his fastball was 83, 86. But we felt like he was going to become a dude and throw real hard, and he always performed. He just didn't have maybe the overall stuff, and we took him, and I never got to coach him. He ends up transferring and ends up being an 11th rounder and played a long time in professional baseball and was up to 98 miles an hour. But he threw 86, 87 in high school tops, and it's I think that can develop over time. So for me, what are those benchmarks? Performer, clean delivery. I do think not always, but a projectable body certainly helps. Now, what's projectable body? Doesn't mean that you have to be 6'4", 180. I think, is he a good mover? Is it clean, athletic? Does it come out of his hand well? Does he land with a closed front foot? Guys that swing that gate open and that front toe is pointing open, right-hander towards first, left-hander towards third. Like, those guys can be scary. Does he have control of his front side? So does he have control of his lead arm and his front hip, which a lot of times those work in unison? And then does he have some sort of secondary pitch that's elite? Yes, it's nice if it's a breaking ball. It's always good that, you show up and you see a guy with a hard slammer and it spins at 2,700 up on the board there at a Lake Point, and you're like, oh, okay, like that's a good pitch, right? But it might be an elite changeup, and maybe you need to develop his breaking ball, because I do think there's a pathway to develop a breaking ball. I really do. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but we've done it, and I think there's a lot of pathways to do it. But does he have athleticism in his hips, on his finish? I like the guy that can rotate real quick through his delivery. I don't even care if they spin off a little bit, but those tight hips, those bad movers, those can be a little bit scary for us, especially if you're talking about a high school kid. So those are kind of the main things that we look at. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's some velocity benchmark, because I do think you can develop that. I'm not sitting here saying that a high school righty throwing 78 miles an hour, at Glenbard West this year is going to make us hop on a plane and come see. Okay, like, I get that. But I do laugh sometimes. People are like, hey, what's the velocity you look for? It's like, man, there's a lot of factors that came into that. But I think the way they throw their breaking ball can go into it. Sean Lyons told me, right when I started my coaching career, and he was proved right by many guys we recruited. He's like, hey, if the breaking ball is hard and the fastball maybe isn't there yet, eventually the velocity will come. And I think that's proven out over the years in a multitude of guys. But those would be the major things that I think you initially look at, in our guys. I'm not going to sit here and say that they have to reach these certain metrics. I know everyone uses the TrackMan info and all that, and I think that's all good and well. But to me, like, can the guy win? Does it move well? Does it show some ability to compete properly? That stuff to me still holds more weight than the TrackMan. I know that some people that really like analytics would disagree with me, and that's fine. But there's a lot of things that go before that, at least in my book.
Coach, you kind of mentioned earlier talking about the high school prospects' makeup and kind of their character. So I guess my question is, how do you evaluate their character and their maturity, and how important is that to your staff in the recruiting process?
I think step one is just your interactions with the kid. I mean, it's rare that you're not going to have look, for me as a head coach, I'm crazily involved in recruiting. I certainly have my 3 assistants do a tremendous job, and Ben, Ryan, and Adam, like, they do a lot from a relationship perspective, and relationships are huge in our program, as they are, I think, in any successful program. But can the kid carry on a conversation? Are they on top of their stuff if you ask them something in a text? Do they get you the information that is needed? Hey, I need to see a transcript. If it takes them 4 days to do, they're probably a bit of a, I don't know. Can you trust this guy? Like, it's not that hard. Watch, here's my email. Boom, 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 boom. Send it out. Like, it's not too difficult. You're going to talk to the people that are around them, whether it's their high school coach, their summer coach. If they're a junior college kid, obviously you talk to different people as well. And then when you watch them, like, you get a gut feel. Like, you can just tell. There's a lot of people. I got no problem with how guys act on the field. Like, if they're crazy competitive and that's who they really are, you can tell. But then there's some guys that force it and it's fake, and it's like, you're doing this because you think, like, that's what we want to see. And I think those guys get exposed. That's why, I mentioned a Will Kincaid, if you will, like a basketball guy. I watch Will Kincaid like basketball highlights, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a real prick. Like, he really, like, is a competitive, like, fighter. Like, that's who he is. And so some of the braggadocious nature that would spill over on the mound pitching wise, that wasn't an act. That's just how he was when he was in the competitive arena. And to me, you have to have that, because especially, and I'm putting this more towards pitching, obviously, you have to have something deep within you to be okay to stand on that island as a pitcher. It's different. I say this, our players would laugh if they listen to this, but hey man, it's one thing to like show up to a park. Like not everybody in the park comes in there, and no disrespect to right fielders, they don't stare in right field. 3,000 people don't go stare at the right fielder and see what he's doing. They stare at the mound. That's where the ball is. And so that there's a different mental toughness that derives from that. I think it's like, you look at golfers with the gallery standing there and the golfer's in the middle and he just, T-bones 300 yards. Like that takes some real mental toughness. And I think you got to find out, especially for pitchers, can he handle that or can he not? And that's why you got to do your research and your recon and see if he truly enjoys being the man in the arena doing that. And if he doesn't, he's probably not a guy for us. He may have stuff. He may check off all of those barometers, but if he's not going to be able to get older hitters out and develop, and he doesn't really love the game and love the development aspect, then it's probably not going to be a fit for Troy University.
And Coach, going off that, kind of you mentioned something about multi-sport guys, a guy playing basketball. How is that important for you guys to recruit a kid that is a multi-sport guy, or sometimes does it matter on the situation? Do you care if they play multi-sports, or what do you kind of look at with that?
We love if they play multi-sports, that's for sure. Now, is it a prereq? Like, do we have to have our whole roster of multi? No, I get it. And sometimes, there's kids that have been multi-sport kids, and then maybe, something happens to them in another sport, and they're like, hey, man, this baseball thing's my ticket. I need to make sure I protect it. I get that. We all, like, at some point we have to make a decision, right? But I think you can learn a lot. I always have said in recruiting, and it doesn't always work out, but I'd love to have a bunch of pitchers that played basketball, and I'd love to have a bunch of position players that play football. In a perfect world, that's what I would really like. Obviously, that works out a little bit logistically, too, to the things that can happen. I know those pitchers that sometimes play linebacker, if you will, they get a little nervous about their shoulders, and I get that. But a perfect world, give me those pitchers that, they got that one-on-one, kind of stick it to you. And you get those position players, they got a little bit of aggression, a little bit of extra strength. They've been in the weight room with football players, and they're going to come in kind of ready to go. So, yeah, I do find a lot of value in that. And, it can be tough because I know a lot of times baseball, let's call a spade, it's become very year-round, which I don't think is the greatest thing ever for long-term development for these guys. But, I think based on your locale or what you do or where you're at in the country, like there, you see at least still a good amount of kids doing it. And the ones that are usually good in one are good in the other. That's how at least has worked in my experience.
Well, we've talked a lot about multi-sport, athletes in this podcast before, and how beneficial it can be. And I love to hear, you kind of singing the praises as well. And you've got one down there in Jimmy Janicki. He was a big football player up here in Downers Grove. And we're actually going to be talking to his coach as well, Coach Brisco, who helps coach the football program there and is the head baseball coach. But Peter, we have not swung it over to you yet. I'm sure you're chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, Coach, thank you for coming on. I was just curious, being a former pitcher, all of us except for Drew, really, do you have a certain, sweet tooth that you look at? I know for me, I always liked the, sinker, slider, good changeup guys. Is there, a certain, not everyone's going to fit the same mold, but is there a certain thing that you just fall in love with easily?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I think if you got a guy that maybe the biggest thing, if you can see him get swing and misses on their fastball in high school, I do find value in that. I know that's a very vanilla statement, but it's kind of amazing how often you can go to a game and people will say, hey, so-and-so is a great arm in high school. And if they don't get a high school hitter to swing and miss at their fastball, my question's always, are they going to get the college guy? Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes velocity can simply play a part in that. Sometimes a guy, once they start throwing 94 as opposed to 88, the swing and misses do come. I get that, but there's a huge element of deception. And I know I didn't even really kind of dive into the deception part, but one of the huge things that we try to develop, and I'm actually working on a PowerPoint for, a speaking thing that I think's undervalued and missed, is just how do you work on deception? How do you clean the arm path to hide the ball for the longest amount of time? And to me, the guys that do that are the ones that a lot of times get swing and misses in high school on the fastball. And to me, those are the ones that are going to be most ready-made to come in and win. Yes, you're going to still get more on your breaking ball or your changeup or your cutter or whatever you got. But if you can never get a guy to swing and miss on a fastball, that's a problem. Even if whether it's a sinker, whether it's a jolt four-seamer, if you get that bad side spinning fastball, even if it says 90 on the radar gun and it's just always hit, that to me would be a problem. So I think the guy that can, however he does it too, like I don't care if it's he gets swings early in the count and then he finishes you with breaking balls, or he spins and jolts you. I don't really care how they do it. I just want to see, can they actually do it?
Kind of continuing what we were talking about earlier, you had mentioned like the curveball velo can indicate fastball velo to come, and like the open toe, quick hips. Do you have anything that you use to like predict velo besides just projectable frame, the way they move, and those other things we mentioned?
I don't know if you necessarily. I don't know if you can necessarily sit here and say, hey, so-and-so's, gonna throw this because of like, hey, I go and watch him and he's 86, 88, but he threw this breaking ball at 79 and it spun at this. Like, I don't think you can necessarily do that. But what I will say is I think you can take people that have been in similar body frames, similar at the same age. And I think the weight room, to me, the weight room is such a differentiator and such a predictor. I talked to Billy Anderson at South Carolina, who's best strength coach in all of college baseball. No offense to other great ones, but he's the godfather of it. And, we used to always talk about the reverse lunge or the split squat and how that would translate over to velocity a lot. And, I look at our roster now and the numbers that we put up in the weight room and how that correlates. And so to me, as long as they're going to be willing to work in the weight room and do the things that go into that world for us, which is that we could do 10 hours on a podcast on that, but like, are you going to get after it and give yourself the chance to develop that lower half strength so that you can enhance all the things that you do well? To me, that's going to be that to me maybe is a bigger predictor than anything.
Well, cannot thank you enough for your time here. We've got maybe 2 more questions. If you need to go, just let me know. I know you've.
No, I'm great.
I'm sure you do.
I'm great.
Okay. Well, Tyler, you have a personal connection here with somebody that pitched at Troy. So why don't you take us away?
Yeah, Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Michael Osmond on here. Former teammate of mine, got a lot of love for this guy, but when I'm hearing you talk about what you look for in a competitor and stuff, a lot of it's checking boxes in my head about Michael. We have a lot of parents that listen to this, and I think it's important in today's college baseball to kind of talk about how it's not always D1 or bust out of high school. And so for those that don't know, Michael Osmond was a Division III pitcher at Wittenberg University with me when I was there. You guys brought him in last year. So kind of talk us through how you maybe found Oz, and what made your staff be like, hey, we got to bring this guy onto our team.
First off, I love talking about Osmond. I just saw him again the other day. He came to our golf outing and had a great time, and he was here a couple weeks before that too, watching us scrimmage multiple days. So he's a great kid, which I think first and foremost is Tyler, like he's just an awesome dude. His teammates love him. But let me give a little more context to Michael Osmond. He had been in college 6 years. He got to us at 24 years old. So Michael, 6'2", 205-pound left-hander. What we like to do in our recruiting is we'll dive into, we dive into anyone that goes in the portal, but we create these. Joe Bukowski on my staff, he does these incredible deep dives on all D2, D3 arms that go in the portal. And Michael was one who had some stats to him, I think it was like 68 strikeouts and like 48 innings. And we dove into him a little more, and he'd missed 3 years with knee surgeries. He'd been hurt all the time. He used to two-way a little bit. So we were watching videos in early June. We literally got back from the regional. His name was in our kind of grouping, and I'm diving through video after video. And I remember being in Coach Wolgamont's office, and we're watching, and we're kind of like, that looks harder than 86, the way he threw his fastball, because he would get swing and misses on his heater. There was like real conviction. And, you start seeing, hey, this guy's performed, but he's always been hurt. You get him on the phone, you're like, wow, this kid's got real good makeup. I was very intrigued by him. And he had 4 or 5 schools that were really in there, other D1s, of course. But I just felt like if that kid could get in our program and remain healthy, which we thought we could do a great job of assisting in that. And Tyler, I don't know if you know this part of it, but we end up, saying, hey, look, I know that here on Synergy we see him throwing 84, 87, but it was always cold. He was always hurt. Like if having been someone who got hurt in college, like being cold and hurt in Ohio during the season is tough.
Yeah, a little bit.
You can attest. And so we said, hey, I think this kid's left-handed and he's got some toughness and he's got a little umph to him. And so we made a run at it. Well, he had actually gotten hurt in summer ball. He threw one outing in the Prospect League. He went 4 innings, struck out 6, and then he literally had to have knee surgery again. And we still said, no, man, come, we'll take care of you. Anyways, he does work, and he threw his first scrimmage, and I'll never forget, his first fastball was 92. And we're like, oh, okay. We felt validated and smart. And, if people followed Troy baseball last year when we really got rolling, I mean, Friday night, Coastal Carolina, 2-run game. They got 2, 3, 4 in the order, Caden Bodine, Graham Brown, all their superstars, Jake Books. And we went in and said, it's Michael Osmond time. And he became our closer. He got back-to-back saves there and had some amazing moments for us. And I think a real success story of a D3 to D1 guy. But we're always looking. I don't care where someone comes from. I care about their background, but I don't necessarily care about their background. There can be a great guy and a great fit for you anywhere in the country, and we're going to be looking for it. And Michael was certainly one of those. But I think what helped Michael that you would agree to, Tyler, is he's a great kid and that he's a real winner. He just had never been able to put together health. And maybe, look, I know I'm selfish to it, but he never got to go play down here in Troy where it's warm every day. We felt like our weight room setup could really, really help him. Thunder, our strength coach who left and now works for Coach Godwin at East Carolina, we knew he could be a difference maker for him and in cleaning his body up a little bit. And then Michael, had support of his teammates and support of everybody, and he was able to be a success story.
No, I love that. And I mean, just personally, it was really cool for me just being around him. I was around him for 3 years. We got really close our last year because we were the 2 old heads on our team at Wittenberg. But just to see all the adversity that he had been through, and just like you said, he was never able to put together health when he was at Wittenberg until that final year. And then that's when he took off. So, it was just really cool that, you guys gave him the opportunity. He means a lot to me. So that was just really cool.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. He's the man, and hopefully he can be, our job's to find the next guy like him, because those guys, look, there's a bunch of cool highlight videos from last year, and he's there, spin fist pumping on the last out in some really, really big games. And if you're a kid like him, that ends up graduating and being in the portal, you can have that same future if you find the right place.
I feel like he wore a lot of hats for you and pitched in a lot of big moments regardless of the situation. You kind of found that moment in the game when you needed that lefty to come in, and you'd use him in those big spots. And Tyler, it sounds like he needed to get a different lifting partner when he was at Wittenberg.
Probably not wrong, but no, he was always a competitive dude. Easily the hardest worker on our team, and I'm not just saying that to be a cliche. He really was, and I think that's no secret why he had the success he did, even moving on to Division I.
Well, I want to end it with this, Skyler. 2 questions. What has been the biggest, learning experience so far being a head coach? And then what is one of the most, memorable moments that you've had coaching? Playing wise, I'm sure it was College World Series. And even if you wanted to get into that a little bit, because I know when Coach McDonald came there to Louisville, it kind of changed in a hurry. And you guys went from being solid program, not really making much noise, to then making the College World Series all of a sudden. But I'm just curious, with this being your first head coaching opportunity, is there one moment that sticks out where you're kicking yourself still? You're like, I'm not going to let that happen. Or if it's been pretty smooth sailing?
I mean, I think the sport of baseball. It's never smooth sailing. It's so hard each and every day. That may sound cliche, but we all know on this Zoom here, it's true. Um, I don't know if there's anything I would say like I necessarily kick myself because I feel like we've always been prepared. Um, what I would say is I think you always are evaluating like just little moments or ways that you handle your team or like certain in-game situations. Um, I think certainly, and I'll admit it on here, like, if you followed our team last year, like there was certainly a pitch or a play. I mean, we were one of the first teams left out of the field last year. I've been sick to my stomach since late May, and you look at some of the games and how did things like just slightly transpire in a non-positive way for us. And, we can sit here and go, oh my gosh, should we have done this? Should we have done that? Like, I think you evaluate all those things, and I've always known the importance of that. I think pitching coaches making decisions do understand that maybe more than people that just, no disrespect to, other coaches, but pitching coach, calling pitches, like you have a lot of hats that you're wearing every single second. I mean, you're involved in every play. But I think you just evaluate, like, what would I have done different? How could I have, worked this guy's psyche better? Like, what could we have done in practice the day before or the moment the day before to maybe have had another arm or had another person ready to handle their moment? That's what I think we've evaluated a lot, at least after last year. If I'm being totally transparent on here, I know that sounds like a real umbrella statement, but like you're evaluating, why did we, have a 5-3 lead in the eighth inning of, this game that if you win it, you're in the NCAA tournament, you end up losing, and then you lose the next day and you're like one of the first 4 teams out. Like it's changed the course of everything, right? So you have to look at all those little moves or pitch usage or whatever. So without making myself sick and reminiscing on that, that's where I'll leave that answer.
Let's get a good moment. Come
Yeah.
on, best moment so far as a Troy Trojan.
See, look, only because of you, Drew. No, Gavin, Peter, and Tyler. I certainly, I would be honest with you guys, but Drew can bring real honesty. I'll give you a real moment, and I won't use the name, but going into our second year, we did a real good job our first year. Our guys played their hearts out, but we just didn't have enough bullets. Like, we lost in the semifinals of the conference tournament and had done some pretty cool things, but we just didn't have enough bullets to be on the national stage. But we brought in 24 new players that next year. We had elite talent in some certain spots, and from our first meeting on August 14th, all I thought about every single day was making the NCAA tournament. That is not like some sort of like, hey, like this sounds like a cool story or whatever. It's all I thought about every single second of my life. And so I remember, laying in bed the night before the selection show, and we had lost in the conference tournament. And so you're not solidified. You're 39-20. Your RPI is 36. You should be in. Every single publication says you're in, but like you don't know. And so all I've thought about every single second of my life is you just are trying to get to that crescendo of like knowing you're in. And I won't say who, but I had a friend in the baseball world send me a text, and I still have the text. 10:29 that night, said, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I've seen the bracket and you're in, and I just want to tell you congratulations." And so my first response is, "Are you 1,000,000% certain when you send this to me?" And the person said, "Yes." I'm staring at it, and it was the first night that I went to sleep probably in a year, and I you still have like, he's right, like, but I think it was the first time I let myself breathe, and I don't. Drew knows this. I don't ever stress. I don't stress out, but in your brain, you're just thinking like every single second of like, what can we do? How can we make this happen? And I think it was the first time that I go, oh my God, okay, we've done this. Like, this is the dream that we've had for 12 months, and it's going to happen. And so what was fun the next day as we went to the selection show and all that was maybe playing it a little extra cool. And I know that we're in, and everyone else is freaking out, and I can just kind of play that little game. But I also think that you you know that you've accomplished a massive goal, I guess. And there's a million goals that I have and we have as our program moving forward. But I think to talk about something and to dream it into existence at the timing in which we did was very unique, I guess. I don't think people thought our second year we would be as good as we were. And to do it, I guess there was some validation in there. So that was a huge moment early on, especially as a head coach.
And that fires me up, just being a friend and hearing that story. And what I know about it too is it's at that point, everything's out of your control, right? And you've had moments in the past coaching where I'm pretty sure my first year at EIU, coming off of your 2009 season, you guys won the regular season OVC championship, but you have to basically win the tournament to get a regional bid. And you probably remember your record that year.
36-14, yeah.
Yeah. The photographic memory of Skyler Mead. It's one of the one of the many reasons you're very successful. But I remember that in the office being a huge deal. Like, it stuck with you guys. You weren't selected. You felt slighted. You felt like you deserved to be in the tournament. And at a program where maybe the conference isn't as good as the Sun Belt, it puts so much pressure on that conference tournament. So I know you've lived it, and that fires me up to hear that, because that's the first time you've ever told me that story.
Well, and I've been on the other side. We were the first team left out in 2009. Look, that East, and people, probably have no context nationally, but that 2009 Eastern Illinois team is one of the best teams ever in the state of Illinois too. Like, that is an elite team. You look at the players. That was a dynamic team, and one loss late in the year just really hurt us and killed us from an RPI perspective. You go back to scheduling. We had a game we lost that we shouldn't, and it absolutely crushed us. And I remember we got a call 5 minutes before the selection show, "Hey, you're the first team left out," and that's a tough call to get. And same thing had happened at Michigan State. So I've experienced the other side of it. And then obviously even last year being tough, watching the show with our players and not making it. So it's really hard to do. It's really, really hard to do. And it goes back to what we said, 45 minutes ago. I'd still rather be in the mix every year and have that sickening feeling than not have a team that's going to be in the mix. And while it sucks and it motivates you, I'd much rather have to live with that every year to have a team that can have those capabilities. While it might not feel good in the moment, I'd still much rather live that way than the other.
Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd want to speak on, Skyler? I can't thank you enough for your time. It's been a full hour here, and it's good to see you. And we'll be thinking of the Troy Trojans here in the off season, getting ready for next year. But can't thank you enough for your time, and hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And what do you got for us?
Absolutely. Well, I one thing I would say, and I know you've obviously been with the company a long time, and to get the opportunity to be on here is really cool, and just seeing what prep baseball has become and still what it's going to be. I can't say enough about Sean Duncan and his vision, and obviously he's been a friend of mine for 17 years, and he knows a story back in 2012, and I'll give the very minor specifics of it, but he and I sit in a restaurant after watching I think a sectional game in Joliet, and we're sitting there. It's like 1 a.m. eating together, and he's giving me his visions of what prep baseball is going to be, and to see how right he was, and I guess how right he was and wrong, because it's become even bigger. But I just think what you guys have done for the sport of baseball, high school, college, etc., I think it's amazing. I know, Sean and all of the guys, there's so many people that get credit, and you guys have the best people working for you. And to me, you're the most trusted source that there is. And it's not even close. And I think a lot of it's just the people, obviously we're, Drew and I are real friends. I mean, Drew, people don't know you were in my wedding. I mean, we are, friends way outside of the baseball thing, but just also like the way you guys help people based on your relationships. I bring up Sean Duncan. I'll never forget. I took a guy sight unseen named Matt Borens, years ago at Eastern Illinois because Sean Duncan saw him throw in a gym, 6'8", 155-pound kid, and he says, "This looks like the guy that you talk about." Tyler, you asked me a question about pitching. Sean Duncan says, "Hey man, this guy fits every checkbox. He just throws like 85. You will love this guy." And he sent me a grainy cell phone video, and we end up getting the kid. And he ended up being a 10th rounder out of EIU. And Drew, obviously, you know players and have helped, and I'm sure you guys we're going to have a player that you guys are connected to that I'm going to make a call to you all on. But I think what goes on behind the scenes of the friendships, but also like truly helping the players. I don't know if people really have an understanding of what goes all into this, but you guys are also a massive enterprise. And I think that's really, really cool. And it sounds weird, but I'm like constantly rooting for prep baseball just because of the connections that I have to it. And I thank you guys on behalf of college coaches across the country, what you really, really do, because I don't think the praises could be sung high enough.
That means a ton to us. And we see it every day being led by Sean Duncan. You talk about how you kind of give it your all to your program, your coaches every single day. You're going to coach them as hard as you can. And I think Sean takes that same mentality into prep baseball. And I'm going to freaking put everything that I have into it every day to make it as good as it can become. And like you said, I think it has kind of outgrown even what he thought. And the sky's the limit. And we've got the right guy leading the charge. And so grateful to have you in my life and to, have you on this podcast and be able to talk and hopefully shed some light and some help, or at least just whatever we could do to help the high school athletes here in Illinois and the Midwest and I guess the entire country here. But I'm so hyper focused here with our group here: Peter Hammock, Gavin Smith, Tyler Deffelball, just trying to make Illinois, Wisconsin as good as we can make it and help these guys out any way we can. So thank you, Skyler. Until next time, but really, really appreciate you jumping on.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, well, we appreciate all the coaches, both coaches hopping on to today's episode, and we're looking forward to next week, and we'll see what we have in store for that. So appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time.